Take it away, Lovejoy.
We're back again for the penultimate. Is this the penultimate Eden Chief Delegate meeting? I believe
What does penultimate mean?
second to last. It's a
Yeah.
fancy way to say second to last. Meeting number 24. It is Thursday, March 31st. John is off screen, but we wish we could see him making his pour over. I think that's what he's about to do. Good morning, John. Oh, water. What? All right, cool. It's like the coffee hour with John.
You need good water for the coffee. You can't have tap water.
That's right. Same with tea. Got to start with good water. So yeah, we don't really have a strong agenda today, but I know we want to go over some recommendations that we feel might be mostly, worthwhile for the future consensus body to consider. Sometimes I don't know what to call future iterations of Eden. It's like, but yeah, anyone want to jump in with some updates? What you've been up to since last week? Chris, you got anything fun for us?
Actually doing it right now too. Yeah, I've been working diligently on my EOS block producer investigation, I guess you can call it. I'm just kind of just digging in, going through all the links and websites and Twitters, and it's not good. I mean, I don't know what else to say. I mean, definition of good. Blocks are being made. Okay, that's great. But apparently even that's not always so great. But it's just yeah, like you can really, it's just anyway, that's what I'm working on. And I will be coming out in advance of next Thursday to kind of complete, even though it doesn't fit in my whole transparency, what I initially had canvassed for during the election. This is a good second place. So yeah, I'm going to come out with this kind of document with information, and then so I'll do that as well as a full summary of all my transactions so after the second trial election, in advance of the first official, I did like a nice summary for all of the people who received funds from that second election. So it's on the eoscommunity.org forum, and I kind of summarized everybody's stuff as best I could for those who gave me information with like links to blocks, transactions, and whatever. So I'm going to do that for myself, for my Eden funds, and kind of summarize my activities for the 6-month term. So those who are first level delegates, and I guess us in this group here, it's probably a good idea. I mean, to each their own, but it's probably helpful for the next election if we're planning to be there to at least be able to point to what we did and have it sort of accessible. So yeah, I'll be working on that and this summary, and yeah, that'll be out next week in advance of Thursday. So it's kind of done to close out the term. And then the Myvodios.com campaign is ramping up. We are gonna we've been kind of pushing this official launch over and over again. I mean, I think at one point we were going to do February 22nd, and here we are at March 31st. Still hasn't really fully kicked off, but it is kicking off. I did a really good interview with Han, and there'll be some teasers for that coming out. And then we're really going to try to push that and launch that campaign. So Han has had some really good conversations with people from Upbit, which is awesome. I think he's even going to meet the CEO next week. So things are progressing, and that cold wallet has it changes, but right now it's 152 million EOS, which is just a staggering amount of EOS just sitting there waiting to be voted. So it looks like it'll be opt-in from users, which really is appropriate, I think, for an exchange. That's, I think, more ethical in a way. If an exchange is going to vote on token holders' behalf, the token holders should explicitly opt in, not just have it something that sits in the terms and conditions that, like, as we all know with T's and C's, right? You want to use the service. You're not going to read it and be like, oh, I don't agree with that one. I'm going to use a different service. It's like, no, you want to use this, so you just click OK. No one reads them for the most part. Do any of you ever read terms and conditions? Like really? Maybe
once in a blue moon.
Yeah.
Once in a blue moon.
You don't do it. So it's like, to those who use it, because I've heard that excuse. Oh, it's in the terms and conditions, so you can't. I mean,
yeah, South Park has a great episode about that.
Do they? Yeah. Anyway, so that's
a little gruesome to share the details on this call. Go check it out.
Okay. Yeah. So that's my update.
And just to clarify, the user is opting in to vote on their own, or opting in to allow the exchange to vote on their behalf?
It would be really, really complicated. Well, it's not. Apparently, Generios has made a tool that exchanges can implement. I don't know exactly how it works, because if an exchange has your tokens and you've got hundreds or thousands of users with various amounts of tokens, you can't really split your hot wallet and your cold wallet to satisfy each of those individual users' particular voting requirements, right? You'd have to have separate accounts for each. So that's like logistically kind of impossible. Well, not impossible, just impractical. So in this case, the idea is that at first, the Myvodios campaign, which is really trying to push for this idea of subjectively ethical voting, where the BPs that sign up are agreeing to no longer vote by trade sell, and they want to do financial disclosure and a lot of that stuff that when the chain launched, what we had expected or what the social contract was with a lot of the BPs. So that's what we're trying to uphold. So Upbit, who doesn't want any compensation, like they're not looking, a lot of exchanges kind of look to make money from this service in a way, like they do receive some funds. But Upbit has no intention or no interest. They make money from being an exchange. They don't care about making money about their tokens, selling their token holders votes. That's not what they want to do. So, so for now, it would be that whoever opts in, I think is how it would work. Any token holders who opt in, they'll create a separate account that then starts to vote for this proxy. And this proxy, the Myvodios proxy, is going to have BPs that have signed up. And there's 8 BPs that have signed up so far. And so they'll receive that vote. And if all the Upbit users opted in, you'd have 100, and it would be Upbit's cold wallet. You'd be something like 150 million EOS voting for these 8 BPs. So you can imagine if that happened, a lot more BPs might sign that pledge, because now they don't need to pay for votes, and they can actually get votes to maintain a paid position and not have to pay for them. So it's kind of an obvious shit. Well, why would you make no money on being a BP if you can get free votes? So that's the carrot. It's just, we've got to get the Korean community, and this is where it's all kind of on Han, to do a really aggressive marketing campaign about EOS. So this is like good for EOS too, right? Because it's like the power of the community and the power of a delegated proof of stake, and having the token holders be sovereign and in control, and not letting these exchanges vote on your behalf, even though you've never really opted in and you don't really get to because if you look at the BPs, as I'm looking at them, there's a lot of recipients of votes who have really shitty presence in terms of no website that even resolves. The social handles are dead. They don't even talk about EOS. APIs are garbage. Like there's about 10 good APIs, stable APIs. Yours is apparently incredible, Aaron, because I was talking with John from Boyd, and he's basically saying he uses about 10 stable APIs to run his EOS PowerUp.io service. Out of all the BPs and that's only about 10 that he can rely on. So that just speaks to like a lot of these top 21, and one of them is from the top 21. So it's like there's 20 BPs in there who aren't even providing a basic quality API that he can rely on. So that's, anyway, off topic kind of.
That was good though. Good update.
Yes.
Sprawling. Cool. Jesse, take it away.
Hey everyone, hope everyone had a good week. At the Bees, we're preparing for our March report. We'll get all the details in our Pomelo grant when it comes out. The other thing that I started working on that's relevant to Eden is this Fractally on EOS brainstorming sessions I'm doing with Patrick from Nova Crypto. And this was in response to when Dan was on one of our calls. He liked the idea of having Eden and Fractally in parallel, helping each other kind of get off the ground. And so we have a group of guys together that are interested in Fractally on EOS. And we also, almost everyone is also an Eden member. And we're also interested to see how those two systems can coexist. And we have a voting mechanism, 2/3 + 1 vote. You submit a proposal, it gets added to Patrick's mind map. There's EOS rewards, 100 EOS per week. I'm using the Bees Treasury. I'm passionate about this project because I'd like to see all of the great people in EOS stay on EOS and get along on EOS. And so this is us trying to just be kind of like a mediator type role. And if a completely independent party creates some proposal, perhaps that can jumpstart the negotiations. And so, yeah, that's my update.
Awesome. Aaron, how you doing?
Right. I don't have a huge update. I have the guy on our team that was driving a lot of the account creation stuff is moving this week, or has been. So meetings have been a little smaller than normal, and work is not moving quite as much. So moving these days is no joke. So, but yeah, as far as I know, code reviews, the first round of the account creation libraries is done, and we're just kind of waiting for a round of iteration on it. Some of the protocols and parameters needed to be changed slightly. So other than that, I mean, we're picking back up steam now that the blue papers are done, which is awesome. There was an iOS Anchor update. I don't know if it's live yet, but got pushed up on test flight, which we might try to open up a little bit more. There's a new version of Anchor Desktop that came out I don't even know when it was. Maybe it was in the last couple of days. We haven't really talked about it too much, but it's just all bug fixes, so nothing super exciting. We're building out the new data center and having fun with that. I mean, it's been nice to get back to some of our core work. So just kind of waiting on the larger EOSIO community to kind of prioritize what's next. And we're trying to get our house in order in case all of a sudden they're like, hey, we need new SDKs, or we want something out of the blue papers. So that way we're ready to take that on. So it's also, I guess, a good reason as to why our Pomelo pitch is kind of important this year, is because we really need people to help us continue to build Anchor, because if we're going to be taking on extra workload in these new SDKs or whatever, like that's going to be intense. So hopefully Gray Mass is growing. We'll get this account creation stuff out, and things are looking up.
Yes, they are. John, are your synapses bathed in caffeine now?
Yeah. Yeah, just fractally work, and gonna do my little presentation. Is it next month? Yeah, next month for you guys. Yeah, on Fractally in person. Gonna have some beers and pizzas at a co-working space. So I'm looking forward to it.
Very cool. Beers and pizzas, co-working space. Sign me up. Yeah, just for myself, chugging along on comms. As far as Eden goes, let's see here. I fired off a handful of initial donations to Pomelo. We'll have to talk about Pomelo today. Some really exciting projects there. Other than that, we've just been spending a little time trying to get ready for this upcoming April 9th election and get prepared for that. I believe also tomorrow we got a little, hopefully getting the technical side all lined up so as to conduct that election well and audit it. So the CDs are going to be, well, I think at this point, support, and one of Randall's people is going to be stepping in to audit the election process so they can document all that information and pass it on to future chiefs so it can continue being administered. Yeah, other than that, just kind of, yeah, not much of an update this week, apart from ENF specific stuff, which I guess I won't cover here right now. So yeah, where shall we begin? Do you guys want to talk about Pamela for a second and just kind of share your thoughts on this season 2? I just launched yesterday, and funding opened yesterday, and already a pretty incredible turnout. And yeah, now with the way attitudes have shifted around, Eden being kind of, integrated in a way like to the Pamela process. Yeah, if anyone has any thoughts on the Eden Pamela relationship, or even specific Pamela projects that you think are really cool. And if you want to do any shameless self-promotion, go for it. I know at least Chris has a project up on Pamela.
I do. I have 2, in fact.
Oh my goodness.
2 projects. The Anti-Fragile Education is back up. So, and if it's actually, it's worth check if you, if you go to it, and not whatever, donate if you want, but there's something, if you go to read down, there's a draft children's book. So it's, my wife wrote it, and I've never really read any, so she just did like sample graphics, but the actual children's story for like grade 5 is what it's set up for. It's totally a cute story. Like it's totally, I don't know. I was emotional reading it because I just thought it was so cute. I guess my wife wrote it, so it made me extra emotional, but it's like just really cute about this. This is Dan is in it, and Brock, and like, a couple of names from the community, not too many, but, and it's about a kid and they want to pick a student representative from their classroom, and there's a popular girl who always wins. So like Dan's not going to bother competing because he's not going to win against the popular girl, and then Brock has an idea because his dad was reading a book about this political playoff thing, so he comes, why don't we do this? And so the teacher's Mr. Satoshi, and they do it. So anyway, super cute. And then if you want to donate, go for it. And then the idea is we'll try to actually we're going to use the funds to make a proper website and make this more publicly available. And then still been working with Dennis Heineck on, and this has been ongoing as far as an Eden thing. Dennis has, he's the high school teacher, and we've been doing weekly calls all along, working through his curriculum to teach his class. The most recent one that we've been working on is play to earn games and and tokenomics. And he's done, it's a financial literacy for high school students. So talking about what is money and scarcity and, fungibility and all these sort of aspects, and then how to rate crypto. Like if you're going to invest in crypto, what defines a good investment, right? Like how do you separate hype from value, which is super difficult, as we all know, but he's trying to like get this into the heads of these teenagers, right? To like, don't just chase the hype, like look for what are the tokenomics, what are the fundamentals that justify why a token would have value other than just the fact that Elon Musk tweeted about it. So anyway, that's been pretty cool and ongoing. And we want to take what he's created and kind of revamp it, polish it up a little bit, remove all the copyright stuff, and then create some material that can be shared with other teachers if they want to use it, just free, like put it up on a Notion site. It's the plan, and have it all just available. And then one of the lessons will of course be near the end about fractal governance, and we'll do a lesson for the kids about this method of coming to consensus and what is consensus, and just kind of getting these ideas in their head is part of the plan. So yeah, if you want to support that, go for it. Another one we have is the Myvodios campaign. So looking to raise funds that will go towards building marketing and advertising around EOS, and then EOS BPs, and about delegated proof of stake, and just how our EOS and EOS.io way of doing consensus is how it has advantages over other chains, and just trying to create some content that separates us from our peers. So yeah, those are my Pamela pitches.
Cool. I know Jesse.
You muted yourself, Lovejoy, but I think you're going to Jesse next, because we know you've got a couple, Jesse.
Yeah. So I have one for being the Twitter and YouTube manager for future Chief Delegates. I'm offering my services for that. If you've watched our calls, it's not the easiest thing to get access to these platforms on the Eden brand. So if we're going to keep the Eden brand, I have a Pamela pitch up there. I will be tweeting whatever the chief delegates want to tweet and uploading their meetings. And so check me out on Pomelo there. I think you search, it's Twitter and YouTube manager for Eden on EOS is the title of the grant. We have a grant with EOS support for an open source referral system. So we have a specific implementation in mind for EOS, but parts of that will be open source. Those two parts are submitting a qualified lead on chain. So that qualification goes on chain. And the other is the smart contract algorithm we're using. It's the difficulty adjustment algorithm for handing out rewards to 3 parties. In our case, that's the new community member, the affiliate, and perhaps a third party like an agent that can help facilitate that conversion. And finally, our main EOSBs grant, we're focusing on influencers, swarms, and that is our Tippet integration. So we're going to use those funds to pay Tippet. Tippet's creating, and I think it's open source. I mean, it's available. You could just go on their website and reward people for liking and retweeting your post with tiered memberships. And so that protects from bots taking advantage of the pool of funds you put towards a certain social media campaign. Translations, we want to do more translations. Right now we're just doing a lot of translating of tweets, but we eventually want to translate all the content out there. And so those are like our 3 kind of core areas, and we have some content creation stuff going on too. And so please see us there. The Pomelo funds were super critical for us to go from 6 languages to we're supporting 11 languages now. And we've got a few more on deck, and we definitely need some more funds to support the various language communities held on EOS. So I want to thank everyone for your support. Thank you.
Sweet. John and Aaron, are you guys doing anything on Pomelo or?
I'm not doing anything on Pomelo. No.
I kind of talked about it when I was doing my update, but we have one up for Anchor this round, and it's purely to go to growing the team to support that. We have a long laundry list of things that need to be done still, and we need a bigger team to work on these 3 separate projects, essentially. Maintaining it across all types of devices is a lot of duplicated work.
I'd imagine. And then you got me asking for Linux support. What a jerk. Come on.
That's part of it. I mean, there's 5 operating systems to support, and primarily 3 of us for the most part working on it. So we have more developers now that are coming up to speed, but
Go Anchor.
yeah, it's a careful dance of all these projects, and sometimes they don't get updates for a while because we just don't have the team. So if we can grow the team, we can do more updates more regularly.
By the way, it seems like this the life cycle kind of issue of like losing transactions seems a lot better now. So thanks for your work on that.
Yeah, we worked with EOS Nation and some of the other VPs to get a better setup effectively. And we also had to enable subjective billing on our APIs, which we've resisted doing up until this point. So
Aaron, sorry to cut you off. I don't know that there's been like a proper public overview of what even happened yet. Maybe you feel comfortable kind of giving a quick overview on that whole incident, because it's been really quiet.
Yeah, there was towards the beginning of March, there were some APIs that sporadically would just lose transactions. You'd submit valid transactions and they wouldn't make it into a block. They would simply, like, your wallet would say, hey, this is good. It'd get sent to the API, and then the transaction never finalized. So there was quite a bit of back and forth over a couple weeks where we were tweaking things and figuring things out and working with various people from, I don't want to name, I don't know who exactly was involved. So I'll just like, I don't want to like miscredit someone for being super critical in this, but there was an effort by all the VPs. There was a spreadsheet filled out. There was better peering situations figured out. So that way we could connect to each other. I know on our end, we set up a new dedicated peer that is now a transaction relay. Just dedicated transaction relay that goes to more well-connected nodes, and that contributed to the success of it. And the other thing I talked about was that more BPs are turning on this subjective billing system, that if you submit a failed transaction to an API, it's going to bill you CPU for that. So even if the transaction doesn't succeed, we've been kind of against that just because it feels like we're punishing people for making a mistake, perhaps. But there are people out there who will just spam the same transaction over and over again until it succeeds. Like they're waiting to claim something, or they're mining something, or they're doing arbitrage or something. And a lot of like 99% of those fail in the way that they build their apps. So now the APIs are actually billing for those failed transactions. It's not, it doesn't actually like, it's kind of complicated how it works. I'll just avoid that. But it really has helped improve conditions. And like, we're not getting any reports anymore of missing transactions. The people that I've been talking to seem to say that it's been good recently. We've seen an uptick in the amount of transactions using fuel, which leads us to believe that that's like a metric that, you know, if we saw declining at the beginning of March and now it raised back up, it's very likely that some of the reason that our numbers were down was because those transactions were just disappearing. So all indications seem to be that the situation is much better now. But yeah, if people still are experiencing the disappearing transactions, I'm sure there's a bunch of us that would like to know. So
Cool.
yeah, it's
Great
kind of like
summary.
a gremlin in the system that you really couldn't identify, and it kept moving. So it happened to some people, didn't happen to other people. If you tried enough times, it would eventually work. And
Did you all end up kind of getting ahead of some of the fixes that are proposed in the transaction lifecycle solution, or is it completely unrelated to that? Or
the stuff in that proposal is going to help here. Like one of the 4 items in there is the ability for an API to retry submitting a transaction onto the peer-to-peer network. And if that was if that was live on the network, this problem might have been overcome if depending on why the transactions were being blocked. So there's also the push endpoint that shows you finality. So that alone, if we had the SDKs to support it, would have made it so that you would have known if your transaction disappeared, as opposed to the wallet just saying good job and then it just goes away. So yeah, there's a number of things in there. And I think this subjective billing thing that I was talking about, there's improvements to that. That was actually one of the proposals, was to make that system better. So I don't remember all 4, but it'll be good to have that stuff. It'll hopefully help prevent this in the future.
cool. All right. Unless anyone else has something they want to get into, one of the other documents I think we want to produce as chief delegates, or the incoming chief delegates, and really all Eden members, is kind of a list of recommendations from the chief delegates, from us, that maybe stuff we couldn't get to, or stuff that is just completely out of scope, or stuff that we thought about at one point in time that may be useful for consideration. This is a wide open topic of discussion, so I can go down the list of some of the items we already have on this document. Can share screen if you want, or we can just talk through it. So far, the first item on the list is socials ownership should be sorted with clear ownership and maintenance, i.e. eoscommunity.org, edeneos.com, edeneos.org, and then Twitter and Medium. Is anyone that's been watching this through the through our entire tenure knows, like, we have not been able to really get a handle on all this stuff, large part, I think, because some of it didn't want to be in our hands, but that's another matter. And perhaps the future, now that Eden is kind of gaining its independence and going on its own path, we can, and with Jesse's finesse and some support from him and others that want to work on this, we can get kind of a unified communication strategy for future chief delegate administrations. And I might add that in my mind, the name and the brand are fair game for, like, if the future chiefs or community saw fit to change the name and just like start a whole new set of socials that reflected that, that's another possible way forward. Anything is on the table. You guys have any comments on social stuff before I move on to the next item?
Donate to Jesse's Pomelo pitch and you don't have to worry about it.
Yeah. What I've been trying to do for us with our clips that we've hired Chuck to do is to have a more regular posting schedule. And so instead of, if we have a video, there's 6 clips in it, instead of posting all 6 clips in one go, which is what Chuck does when he completes all the clips, he uploads them into the Eden private members channel, and it's all 6. But what I do is on YouTube, I do it 1 per day. It's just more digestible that way. So, just kind of thoughts like that. And as well as on Twitter, I think that, like, for each chief delegate call, I think Chuck was doing some notes, but if he had like a tweet thread for the call, just kind of really digestible bullets and text of what the call is, I think those are kind of like first steps to kind of up the communication strategy for the chief delegates going forward.
Cool. Anyone else have any thoughts on ways we can improve, or ways we can, I don't know, battle? What are your hard won lessons about communication, if anything? Otherwise, I'll move on.
Maybe consider doing these live. Like, start your meeting. Like, we start these meetings, we do some jibber jabber. We talk trash about people. We don't want to do it on the recording. No, just kidding. And then we don't do that. But talk what you need to talk about, and then just be prepared to be live, and just go live with it. It's done. You don't have to edit it. It's just easy. And I think I know when I was trying to help do this at the beginning, and it was like taking the recording, putting the intro in, putting the outro, like cutting anything out you needed. It's just a pain in the ass. So if you can just do it live, and somebody gets like a StreamYard account where you can even include an intro and an outro, well, then it can even look somewhat polished, and you can even change views around. StreamYard's great for that. So I would suggest that, maybe just to streamline things and cut down some friction.
Something that I've been thinking about more, and that this was a recommendation from Eve, about 1 month elections. The more I think about it, the more that makes sense. 1 month elections. So that would be my recommendation. potentially for the next chiefs to propose 1 month elections.
Can you speak to why? What advantages you see? And
Yeah, so Lovejoy, you came up with a consolation bracket because 3 months people would lose interest. So like consolation bracket 45 days later. So one of them is to keep people's interest more regularly. We wouldn't need a consolation bracket if we're doing it every month. And the other big one is this accountability problem that's in Eden. And I think to mitigate that, so basically you get a salary up front, you make promises, you get money up front, and then you have to see whether you actually achieve your promises. And if it's just a 1 month time frame, then that reduces the burden of checking on people's promises, I think.
so it's strictly about just accountability
And keeping people's interest.
and interest. Okay.
Yeah, I think the
keeping people
accountability
engaged.
problem's the biggest problem of Eden. And that's like why I think the Fractally team went the whole other way. They completely inverted it.
Yeah, entirely from,
Yeah,
you know,
I
from
think
from the promise to do X to the I've done X, now receive Y.
and so now you're taking all the risk of doing the work. I prefer more of a hybrid model. That's what we use at the Bees. Part continuity, part accountability.
Mhm.
And but yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Anyone else have any thoughts on 1 month? Oh, Aaron?
I was just gonna say, we need machines in place for that to be a reality though. Like that, I think is a good goal, is to go faster. But we need like that, a marketing machine, and we need the administrative machine, and we need development support and like systems to show accountability. Even if it's that's just like, here's a Word template. After your term is done, fill it out and publish it somewhere. Like it could be that simple of a system, but right now, like we couldn't just like go to 1 month instantly because there's no process in place for any of this. Like look at the lack of process we've had in this 6 months. So hopefully we get these things figured out. There's going to be like, I hope somebody runs on the administrative idea and like can build out these systems for candidates. Like if you get elected, you should be handed like, here's your guide. That's what we need to get down to, like 1 month elections or lesser elections. And Fractally is going to need this kind of stuff too. Like, how do you represent yourself week to week?
Yeah, personally, I'm not a big fan of 1 month. I think 3 months is because it depends on what a goal or intention of Eden is. If we want to eventually turn this into something that has some sort of governance power, then I think 1 month would be too short. It would be too much turnover. And that would be, so I think 3 months is a nice medium. Personally, I think 3 months is the sweet spot. 6 is too long. 1 seems too short. 3 is like that Goldilocks zone in my mind, where you can have someone there long enough, some stability, gives them a chance to get done what they wanted to get done. And yeah, I understand the accountability piece is hard, but it would still be hard after 1 month, to be honest, because you're still going to need people to put up what they've done and make it available. If anything, it's more frequent accountability at that point, so it may even be more difficult. And the attention span thing, it's part of it's because we didn't really have a purpose. Like if we knew that this was like a major governance thing for the EOS blockchain, and when people participated, they knew that if you became a chief delegate, you were equivalent to I like this equivalency because it makes sense because I'm on the Telos Foundation board. But if this created something equivalent to that board for Telos, that's a lot of responsibility. That's a lot of people who give a shit about this chain, especially if it was like a compensated role. You'd see a lot more people participate, and the ones who actually give a shit because they would want to have input. So I think that would almost filter out some of the kind of the right people for this governance model. So I don't know. Yeah, I think 3 months would be nice. Like, let's not rush to 1 month. Maybe, but let's just give this a couple spans of 3 months, maybe.
Yeah, the accountability point is interesting because if we're going to, let's say, just 1 month, then maybe there's more there's more unique kind of ideas you have to consider and keep people accountable for, I guess, if there's different people every month. But on the other hand, it's a protection against if someone is not able to fulfill their promises, I guess, are the pros and cons there.
I think this kind of highlights the need for two Edens, one that's focused on governance and electing leaders, and another that's focused on distributing funds to do projects. Because I agree with you, Chris, like 1 month is too short for any sort of leadership for continuity and stuff. But it's great if the whole purpose is just to distribute funds to projects. So those two things really conflict, and the solution might be that we just need two separate elections, two different iterations of the process.
Although
Very
for
interesting. Yeah.
for continuity, like if you're good at leading, then in theory you would still remain in place. You know, you just get re-elected. Like you could persist.
Right.
True, unless the people you end up with don't. they
Guys,
want to
Randall's in
push
the
a-
waiting room.
Oh, he is?
Yeah.
We're gonna have people conflicting in elections though. Like there's gonna maybe some guy with a really good project needs funding, and somebody with really great leaderships ends up in like the same room together. The people deciding who moves forward out of that room now are deciding between governance and funding a project. And
Well,
really,
No, they can still have both. They can pick the governance guy, and the governance guy says, yeah, I'll, put
give
money
you my
towards that.
budget. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, you could run the governance one theoretically without a budget too. Or maybe it's a budget just to pay for the people's time and it's small.
But yeah,
Like
well,
it's
yeah, we shouldn't adopt the idea that you got to elect the person who wants the funding to get the funding. You can still have the governance people who are then giving the money towards, the projects that need, funding. Okay.
You could. I just think it'd be a lot cleaner if there were just two. Like I think at this point in time, I'd probably run in the governance one, but I might not run in the project one.
Yeah, but there's going to be cases where people just want to, they just want money for their project, and
That's fine. They run in the project one.
Oh yeah, you're talking about two different elections.
Yeah.
Yeah, shit, we can barely do one election. Let's just baby steps.
Yeah. But
Um,
between the 1 month and 3 month, like that gets rid of the question really of like shorter elections for funding.
So
make
how
more
long would you
sense.
go, Aaron, for the governance election term?
3 to 6, probably.
but we're still so early on that we're not really governing shit anyway. Like, what are we
No,
governing?
but we got to prove the process.
Well,
Yeah,
we
so
at least have to be able to govern
prob-
ourselves.
probably best that we do shorter cycles then, in order to prove that it's robust enough and there isn't like a 3-month wait time every time we want to see how healthy it is. Like we'll get a lot more data if it were 1 month than 3 months. Like no one knows if Eden actually works because it's been so long since the last election. For all we know, that we just got really lucky and it's all going to go to shit in the next election. So it's going to be hard to get confidence from people, because they're going to want to see a few elections. If it takes 3 months to get that data, it's going to take like a year or more for people to be confident enough in the election process before they would trust it for more governance and stuff like that as well.
It's true. And I guess if we can't have both in parallel, because if we had double elections happening for two different purposes, that's even more proving of the process. But if we can't have two, then maybe it is better to have the shorter one to prove it, so that way we can spin up the second one in the future.
Yeah, and given that we don't have really any mechanism for, again, like say if the chief delegates are shitty, or no one really likes them, that there still isn't a button that the rest of the Eden delegates, or the rest of the Eden members can press to reset that thing. Where if it was a 1 month thing, you could say, yeah, like we've got a bad set, but it's only 3 weeks away until we can do another re-election, rather than 3 weeks and 2 months away as well.
All right, so
But then there's still the technical expense. Like, I don't think we can get away with 1 month elections without also updating the contract. I think it'd be some more development costs in doing it. And then of course there's just the cost in running the election in general, having an MC ready to go for it. It's going to be more expensive, but I still think it'd be worth the cost. I'm just saying that there will be more cost.
Yeah, we could afford it with the treasury if we can just decide how to get the money out of the treasury outside the 5%.
Yeah, and as we get stuff better documented and we're better rehearsed, it'll be cheaper and more efficient to run over time. And then of course, more engaging.
The other thing about a 1 month latency is that if anyone is running on a project, that's not a lot of runway to complete what you're looking to do, unless everyone is running on a 1 month.
It's just gravy for these projects.
Yeah, it's not, it's not the idea to fund the whole project. It's like, hey, this is what my project has been doing. Do you think it's worth the funding? Okay, we'll give you a month and we'll check in with you next month. And if it's still an awesome project and the community still think it's cool, we'll give you more funding.
That sounds very fractally-esque, and I don't. That's not how I was thinking how this was supposed to play out.
So what happened?
Well, if you want more of a bulk, you can go to Pomelo, but I reckon the fractally way is just way more accountability.
So what happened? We are trying to run 2 separate.
Well,
Hi,
we're
Randall.
entertaining the idea of 1 month election cycles rather than 3 months election cycles.
but
Just
this
coming
is
up with
just
ideas.
yeah, this is in the context of recommendations for future administrations to consider, rather than, we're not putting this forward as like
You guys,
riffing.
we could have had fun with that and be like, these are the new bylaws. We're going to put them forward.
Hey, tomorrow's April 1st, and this isn't going to come out before then. We could April Fools everybody with a whole new set of like really radical ideas. That'd be fun. But yeah, that's the context, Randall, that you just entered into. And hello. Welcome.
Hello.
Do you want to give us a little personal update before we resume the
Yeah.
work here?
Yeah. So I was able to meet with Fractally team briefly. So tomorrow they want to meet up as well, and they want to do some testing and see how the system is gonna run. So that was something that I was doing today, early in the morning. And the second thing is I was able to meet up with Dow Bull team, and they're also ready to go. They have their team put back together, and they want to meet up to discuss if we can do this with a token, and how the business model is going to be, or also decide on if you want to do it through the AVM. So yeah, so that was interesting meeting as well. We have a couple of suggestions to meet again and to go over those things. And we were also working on Pomelo. So finally, it's up. People are donating, and I'm hoping that we will get the community behind us, because your support, we put a lot of work into this, a lot of work. So I'm hoping the community sees the hard work that even for me, if I want to charge as a project manager, it's like the amount of work I've put into this. I don't know. So I'm hoping the community appreciates it, and they will support us. And what else? We've been helping still. We've been helping people, and we've been learning a lot of new things. Especially now we are going into like the whole, monitoring the network as well. So those are the things that we've been doing now. And while we are doing all this, we are still working on our platform to make sure that it will be very awesome for the community in the future. So those are the things that we've been doing so far.
Great, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you,
Brian.
Randall.
Mhm.
Does anyone have other topics for our CD recommendations? I'll scroll down a little here. We have future elections and code updates. Consider contracting directly with the faculty team or individual members from it. Establish a separate pool of funds to function as operational funds for EOS organization. Bylaw number 6, implementation to remove round 3 HCD pay. We talked about that last week. That was the most efficient way according to your support devs. This one's a big one, obtaining access to the active keys. This is in our bylaw. This is mentioned in our bylaw.
Active permission. We're not asking for keys. The key is a public and private key.
So with the permissions, I think I briefly
There
touched
you go.
on it.
There you go, John.
Yeah,
Change.
with the permissions, I touched on it with Brandon briefly. There is going to be a process for that. It's something that I think is going to take time for us to transition. But the team is willing to work with us, work with Eden and Eden Chief Delegates.
Randall, what kind of process would that be? Because I've changed keys on a multi-sig. It's
no,
pretty simple.
No, it's not about that. It's not about the permissions just being changed. We want to make sure that we have a good system so that there is accountability and there is a way that at least, let's say if we want to have the parent active keys be held by, let's say, the faculty team is holding a
The
parent
active key. Yeah. Or the active permission.
parent permissions, and then we have the board major, right, which is a child permission, right? But we want to make sure that we don't just give the same people those permissions, because what happens if we can't find these guys or something happened, we can't change it.
Yeah, you can. With
Yeah,
the
how you
2/3.
No, but when you have the chief delegates, you have 3 or 2 of the chief delegates missing, and we need 2/3.
Right, that's
So,
when you go to the block producers.
yeah, we don't want to do that. That's the whole point. We want to make sure that we set a system, in a
So
way that-
how do you do that without the block producers?
So if you have the parent permission being held by, let's say, the faculty team, for example, and you have the board major being controlled by the chief delegates, and there's a problem, the faculty team can change the key, right?
It
But
sounds
if you
very
give the chief
independent.
delegates both permissions, you can't.
Wait, so
What'd
are
you
you
say, Aaron?
saying is this your idea, Randall, or is this what Fractally have said that they want to do?
No. They said that. This is what they said. They said that they want to transition through the process so that we can decide on how we are going to, decide on the permissions, how we're going to transfer the permissions. That's what they said.
Yeah, Aaron, what was your comment?
I didn't say anything. I just said okay, because they know better, and I think they can decide on how things are going to work better. So I was like, okay, whichever way that it is.
No, I asked Aaron what his comment was. I thought he said something.
Yeah, it's the point of it is to take control away from that team and to have the system be independent. Like, there's nothing to be done if it's just staying the way it is.
Yeah.
We could come up with a sort of safety net system. Again, maybe previous chief delegates persist, or we have like a backup board where it's just basically people that are selected as just, you know, trusted community members in general. They don't have any governance powers. They're just there in case of, you know, an emergency or, you know, something like that. Technically, we could even give Eve himself some, you know, like a multi-sig, you know, influence as well. Again, trusted people, you know, could even ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I like that
Yeah.
idea. Not just the 6 chiefs and maybe a couple other very trusted with the 2/3 plus with some, well, if it's still, yeah, or yeah, 2/3 plus 1
And,
with a couple extra trusted people.
and this is to do what? Swap the keys? Permissions?
Yeah, swap the permissions. Yeah.
No, this
So
is, we're
I
talking
think-
about the active permission right now. We're talking about control of the account
Right.
and ability to update the contract and transfer tokens and all of these other things. Like, that needs to go into the hands of Eden itself.
Yeah.
Like that. One of the things we talked about was making sure that this system, like, if it's going to fail, it's going to fail. And if whatever concerns are being brought up right now of chief delegates disappearing, like that's fine. There's a fallback method.
Which is
The block
Which is
producers,
either
block
going to the
producers.
BPs or having an additional signatures on the active permission, like Eve.
potentially. I mean, you're going to want more than just one. You're going to want multiple. Like, you can, I don't see much difference in going just to a single, like to Eve and a collection of multi-sig providers versus a collection of BPs.
Yeah, we can do
Oh,
that. Like, you can
we-
have, like, let's say, a person from, let's say, Wallet Plus. Then you can have one person from, let's say, another, let's say, EO support. Then you can have one person from a different, so it's like a different, from the ENF. So all these people will they will have a MSIG to come together if there's a problem like that.
I think it's a terrible idea.
It's a
This
terrible
is
idea.
supposed to be Eden. I mean, for this is all framed around Dan's book, More Equal Animals, talking about independence. So we're talking about the exact opposite of that. We're creating dependencies upon other people who we trust. How long do we trust them for? I mean, to me, they're not elected. Eden's electing people to take care of its treasury. That is the whole purpose. I totally would disagree with this personally.
What specifically that you're disagreeing with? The
The
idea
fallback method. He's disagreeing with
fallback
having a
method?
fallback
the,
method.
the idea of adding random people that somehow we are going to subjectively decide are trustworthy, whether they are or not, it's still very subjective. It didn't follow an election process to actually elect those people to be trustworthy. It's just using.
Yeah, so you'd be okay with a fallback method provided that it utilized the Eden process to like determine who those people are.
I mean, the owner key is the fallback, is the way, as far as I can tell. If we had an issue, we'd go to Eve, like we're going to put them on the active and just say, hey, Eve, can you talk to the BPs? Because you're the guy who can, and we need to fix something. Why would we
but
add complications to the active key?
it's just a matter of, you know, saying, I guess, you know, are the BPs, is that too much friction? Like, why not, you know, mutate what that owner thing is, and, you know, by doing so and updating the active permission where it's a little bit, you know, easier.
Well, there's liability concerns too.
There should be friction there. Like, if Eden screws up and has to go to the BPs, like, that's a form of accountability for Eden to the BPs at that point. Like, it should be annoying to do this.
Yeah, and Recover Plus is happening. Like, Francis is working on that to create accessibility, right? That's one of the outputs of Recover Plus, is to allow access to BPs for special and unique situations where it's warranted.
All right.
Wait, but hang on. So if we say that we don't want to change the current plan, Randall, did Fractally sound like they were suggesting it, or did Fractally sound
No,
like
no, we just
they
wanted
were
to,
implying it, like we're not comfortable now making the change without a little bit more?
no, it's just more of, we have to come up with a better plan so that we can transition nicely. It's just like a nice transition. They want us to have a nice transition where we can responsibly transfer the keys. That's all.
Right. So does that mean they're not comfortable doing the plan that we wanted?
Oh, no, they didn't say, I mean, Brandon did not show any sign of not being comfortable with the transition.
Yeah, they just want a process. We haven't written down like a formal process. I think they're looking for something like that.
Like a staged approach to adapt something. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Okay, moving on. So that was like a whole section on key management for future chiefs, which I think we're going to end up solving. It's not even like, it's kind of outside of recommendations, because by the time the incoming delegation even takes over, we'll have some sort of something working strategy in place, right? Hopefully.
We hope so, yes.
Sorry I was away, and thanks for grabbing the mic, Jesse.
You're welcome. Got you.
Do we want to, there's two things that have come up that I thought we could touch on. One is like the wisdom of being able to trigger new elections. The other one is being able to boot people from the community. Like there are no processes in place for either of these two things, and I don't know if we value those things or not, but they've come up. And there's got to be a better term than boot people. I'm not sure what it is.
Kicking.
Kicking.
Yeah, well, I like the idea. I think it's definitely needed, but we've never come up with a way of doing it, have we?
Yeah, the Fractally team, when they were eating, I remember they did a couple videos about a process. But it seemed complicated, and it's probably not an easy process to evict people. But I do see the value in it. If for bad actors, you need a mechanism to. But on the other hand, you only get funds if you win a first round in the election. And so what's the big deal of having a bad actor if he'll never get voted in the second round anyways?
Well, it's not a bad actor, it's bad actors. Like if they collude, or again, they just, straight up say, I'm not gonna vote for myself and sabotage, this round, or, whatever it might be. Or again, they just can't speak English. And then they're just gonna be, throttling the consensus efficiency, especially if it was, monthly or whatever, that kept showing up and being annoying.
And isn't there also potentially some value in just kind of like cleaning the membership list of inactive people? I mean, I guess our 2/3 is no longer, in the bylaw we proposed, it doesn't require a majority vote anymore anyway. So that was the reason that came up. Are there any other reasons to like clean the membership list of just inactive or dead people?
I can't think of any.
What about snap elections? Do you think, does anyone think there's any reason to have a function like that?
I think it'd be cool, but again, we don't have the technical expertise to actually fulfill that and make it happen. That's why I was keen on the 1 month election cycle, and that's just the closest thing that we can get on the cheap.
Right. So it would a snap election would protect against chief delegates or other delegates that weren't doing what they promised to do. in a longer latency period. So a snap election would be useful for a 3-month election latency period, for example.
I wonder if it even needs to be necessary. There's like a kludgy way of doing it where you could just do some sort of validated poll within the Eden community or whatever satisfies the snap election, and then again go to the BPs. Say, hey, we've got fraud going on. We voted. We need to intervene.
We can't go to the BPs for that. Let's just look stupid. Look like, hey, we don't have our house in order. Can you step in for us and take over? Like
That
no.
sounds like that's this. We got hacked. We didn't have our house in order. I know it looks stupid for you to step in and intervene, but would you mind? I mean, it's the same difference. I'm saying it's there's fraud and we're losing money from the treasury, which came from the token holders because they're the ones who donated to it. It's not an inappropriate request, especially depending on the amount that's being taken.
Oh, you mean if like the treasury gets hacked?
Or just no, not so much.
Fraud.
But like one of the chief delegates, or they start to collude, and or if the chief delegates look like they're colluding and they're going to siphon the funds out or something. It
But
wouldn't.
but then that goes to the argument of then this is a failed system. If the system elected those people that are defrauding the system, then it's a failed system.
Then we don't need snap election if that's our approach.
Right. But I think in the beginning, and what Dan described, this rapid iteration phase, perhaps it's relevant in the beginning. I don't know.
But why is it that we cannot have an election if that's the case? Why is it that the community cannot have, or the delegates cannot sign for 2/3 petition to have an election?
You go vote of no confidence or something.
Well,
said it was
what are we debating here? Like the ideal stuff or the realistic stuff that we can actually action?
I think
I
ideal.
guess, yeah, probably ideal, but yeah, like if
Oh,
you could
fuck,
design a
well,
system where you can imagine snap elections are useful to begin with.
yeah, but we've been debating what's ideal for the last 6 months now.
Yeah, but this is our recommendation. We're on the deep end of the recommendations here.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just going over bullet items, like stuff we've thought about might be useful to consider in the future, and then maybe any ideas about how they could be implemented or things
Yeah,
to
our
consider.
bylaws were all practical. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
We're saying our bylaws were all practical, and now we're doing these recommendations which are not as practical.
Not immediately practical, but could be really valuable in the long run.
Yeah.
Not actionable, let's say, in the immediate sense. Okay. Well, we don't need to dally on any of these for too long. On that note, future elections and code updates, consider contracting directly with the team or individual members from it. I mean, right now, I think part of the idea is to train up a team, and Randall Support has kind of volunteered to take on that role. I would, however, think that Eden would want to maintain a certain degree of independence. So, and that's why one of the emphases on the work that Randall and Support are doing is to create a lot of documentation around the process for running the elections and for smart contract development around Eden smart contract, so that they don't become like the only game in town. But they're really uniquely positioned to do it right now. So
have you got a smart contract developer, Randall?
Yeah,
Who is he? Do we know him?
yeah, Rich. He's an EDM member too. Yeah,
What kind of experience does he have in smart contract development?
a lot of experience, but that's something that you can ask him in the future. Yeah, he's very good. I'm not just saying that just to say that. He's good.
Well, and honestly, the Eden smart contract isn't rocket science. So
Yeah.
There's some pretty
Yeah.
pretty funky stuff in there. Again, it's written by the bloody some smart cookies that have definitely pushed pushed it to the limit. Like the way that they wrote it is only, you can tell that it's only kind of, you know, ex B1 people that would do it in the style that they did it, kind of thing.
You have a very high regard for B1 code, it sounds like.
Have you read the smart contract?
No. No, but I've read plenty of other code. And we are veering way off topic.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I tried looking at it to do something, and then I was like, oh fuck this. This is kind of next level. It's not your generic smart contract.
Is it next level or is the documentation just really bad?
I don't look at any documentation. I just looked at the code.
I see.
So what do we think about an exit tax?
Oh yeah.
To put a pin on
What is
that though, like developers are available in the community, and I'm glad Randall has one that's probably capable of doing this. And if need be, there are more smart contract developers in the community that could be leaned upon.
Right.
That was, before we veered way off, was kind of just the point I was trying to make.
Sure. Jesse trying to keep us out of the dark end, the dark end of the forest, the dark side of the forest there.
Let's hang out there for a while.
Yeah, we could, but this would be a very different conversation.
No, it's too scary. It's too dark.
Yeah, it's spooky in there. There'd be dragons there. Okay, exit tax. You know, Zach and I were talking and just talking about all sorts of interesting things that kind of came up and went. And I remembered there was a lot of treasury work being done by the Clarion OS now Fractally team. Are we gonna have to do that forever or just for now? It's like different eras. In the blue era. But yeah, I remember there was a lot of work being done and around the treasury and focusing on different functionality there. And I was kind of hoping that maybe some of that work is still just sitting in a, you know, like a repository somewhere and isn't lost to time and could be possibly repurposed by future iterations of Eden. If the Fractally team still has that stuff or those thoughts and written down in any coherent form that could be picked up. And one of those ideas, among many, was an exit tax. So a way of tracking expenditures within the Eden community and levying a tax on funds that are departing, essentially. So when you're, and then redistributing that tax money back into the treasury, essentially. I thought ideas like that were really cool. Thoughts, anyone?
So it incentivizes to people to hire within the Eden community if you need work done, because if you're paying someone who's an Eden member, you're not subject to that tax. So I could see the thinking behind it. On the other hand, I feel like our community currently is too small for an exit tax, but it's another chicken and egg problem, I guess.
Yeah. Do you all remember off the top of your head any of the other ideas that were posed for treasury management functionality, or should we just move on? I just have a note there.
Yeah, let's just move on.
Wasn't there just the tariff bit? Did we talk about that? That was one thing that was interesting.
That's the exit tax.
Yeah, I think that,
Right.
yeah, I should do exit tax / tariff. Basically what
It was called, right, it was called a tariff. It was not called an exit tax when we were.
Yeah, I was just using that term because I couldn't remember the word tariff. All right, then there's the idea of establishing a separate pool of funds. And I'm not sure. Randall, I think, articulated it the most clearly, but I still don't. I think the problem in a recent discussion I had with this idea is that it kind of lands us back in this like territory of needing an entity, because who are the funds being given to, essentially? Or maybe you guys have an answer for that, but if there's still even a recommendation here, or if we've all just moved on and abandoned it.
The additional funding question?
The idea of establishing a separate pool for operations.
I still think it's useful. I mean, it could be easily something that someone can just run on, though. A chief delegate can say, hey, vote for me, and all of my funding will go into a pool that the chief delegates can use as core funding to pay for.
Yeah,
managing
but
managing
if the
assets.
chief delegates deemed it warranted, why can't they just do it themselves? Like, why didn't we make our own pool if we thought it was worth doing?
Too difficult to achieve consensus.
Well, if it was
Well,
too
And also
difficult to
perhaps a chief
achieve consensus
delegate,
on it,
like myself, I need to use all the funding for my project.
Mhm. Yeah, well, and then we got into the entity discussion too, which is like, if we pool our money in order to hire contractors, then suddenly we need an entity, or we're just working within the ecosystem, and like,
Plus,
I'm paying some and you're paying some. And
if we can't reach consensus on establishing a pool, then how the hell are we going to reach consensus on, you know, what to use the pool funds for as well?
Okay, quick one, before we continue. So, Brandon Fancher said that, and I read what he wrote. He said that, as we discussed earlier, we can come up with a transition plan for, given the permissions, right? Or the chief can come up with a plan. We can support the transition effort. That's what he said. All right. So they are willing to support whatever that we come up with.
okay,
Yeah, cool. Thanks. That's encouraging.
John, to your last point, don't assume that because we weren't able to do something that future iterations won't be able to do what we failed to do. That's terribly arrogant position.
Well, no, if they want to do it, they can do it. But I'm just saying that we shouldn't force them to, you know, do it. And again, like, if they deemed it worthy of doing, then, you know, it's not hard to create another EOS account and just put a multi-sig on it, and there's your pool. Like, it's not complicated.
But where is it being funded from?
Well, if they want it funded, then they can fund it with their, you know, money that they've got from their CD pay.
So then again, we're back into that weird nebulous territory of a group of people pooling money to be spent on something. I don't know. I'm not a lawyer, but it just I think the idea was to establish something that, and again, this might be like just a terrible idea, the separate pool of funds. In fact, the best hack I've heard so far is Chris's idea of just a CD or somebody running on being the operations person, and then just using their entire budget for funding operations. I think that's, and then managing operations. I think that's kind of a cool idea for when you have potentially six chief delegates. So theoretically, depending on, you know, if it's not all this project funding, you almost have like a classic board with like all the different functions represented.
Yeah. The downside, of course, is it's just if no one makes it to the top willing to do that, then when everyone gets there, there's no funding for chief delegates.
Yeah.
So what is wrong with the chief delegates having X amount of money in a treasury or in an account that is MSIG specifically for operations? What's wrong with that?
Well, they can do that if they want to, but if they don't want to do it, then I don't think they should be forced to.
Well, we're not talking about forcing anyone to do anything right now.
Well, then what are we?
No,
What
but-
are you talking about? If they want to pull, then they can create a
No,
pool.
but that's the whole thing about an entity, all those discussions we had about an entity. And
But
some
you-
people wanting to legalize the entity and some people not wanting to legalize it.
Why do we need an entity for a pool?
Yes, so John does not want to legalize it. So
Yeah, but even then, like the pool is going to be EOS, right? So it's going to be held in an EOS account. What's having a company attached to it that, you know, claims ownership of over that EOS going to do?
Who is the contractor going to
So we-
invoice to create a paper trail?
yeah, guys, we can go back to CD call number 11 for this discussion.
Yeah.
See, painful call number 11. Yeah, it's
Well,
a,
yeah, are we
but-
talking about a pool? Or are we talking about a company, you know, or whatever you want to call it, a non-profit that is funded by Eden?
I think I see what John is. Did I just get kicked?
No, that was me.
Oh. You
It's like
stopped sharing?
my mom's texting me now. I'm not trying to share my screen anymore. I feel like we're done. Like I feel like we went through the document, right? We're kind of done with that document.
Aha.
I guess not, but judging by your reaction.
Well, my whole screen went different, like blank, and then
Right, because
It
I
just- it
stopped
just
sharing my screen.
took me off guard for a second.
Right.
You gotta give them a
Uh,
warning next time, Jesse.
Sorry.
All right. Yeah, we're more interested to look at anyway than that terrible document. At least it's not like the random stuff I shared earlier. We can be done whenever we want. There's no.
Yeah, I
Um,
think we're right up to 2 hours. I think that's a good kind of duration for us.
Yeah, unless anyone else has any other stuff they want to.
I felt like the
Bring up
cadence of this call was slower than average, our average kind of cadence.
Really?
Felt like a little dragging through this call. I don't know about anyone else.
My. Well,
Pretty normal to me.
Oh, really?
I'd like to point
Yeah.
out that this definitely looks like a fake slap, because look, he's like leaning into it. His eyes are closed, sort of tucked neck, bracing for contact.
Well, because he's already recognizing he's going to get slapped.
so you lean into it.
Well, yeah,
You know-
because I think he still thought it'd be like a, you know, a funny slap, not an actual threatening, you know, screw you slap.
No attempt to block.
This,
Well, yeah, because he still thinks it's still a joke and it's not real. So yeah, he's just, you know, going along with it. He's being open to it. You know, he's going to ruin the joke if he, you know, defends himself and, you know, runs away, isn't he?
it's true. Yeah.
Staged.
I don't know.
They
I
just
go
knew
either
there
way.
was no Oscars interest. No one cared. They need more distractions.
It's obvious that Will Smith is a sook, and again, he's just a bloody
he's a what?
Sook.
a sook.
What is
What
that?
is
How do you
that?
spell that?
SOOK.
Should we go to Urban Dictionary?
even know that
Let's-
word.
Wait,
Yeah,
let's
that's-
pull up
Yeah,
Urban
well,
Dictionary.
Yeah, what's that word?
How's the cadence now, Jesse? Getting better?
I don't know sook. It's not Canadian.
Oh,
No, it's a
like,
female
means-
crab. It's not a female crab.
it
Wait,
means
I
like-
got it, guys. I got it. Wait, hold on. I got it.
Don't challenge his masculinity. He'll strike again.
It's a Newfie term. That's Canadian.
Oh, he's sucked off somewhere.
Is this the right word, John?
Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Term for
Crybaby
crybaby
or
wine.
whiner.
Oh,
Are
no
you
way.
secretly from Newfoundland, John?
That's
Wait,
awesome.
is Newfoundland like a Canadian think place? What's it
Oh,
called?
it's a Canadian
Province?
place, and everybody talk like this. Hey, what's going on? Welcome to Newfoundland.
Yeah,
Guys, I
think
am gonna stop sharing my screen now.
we inherit a fair bit of slang from Canada as well. I didn't realize, but you guys say darts over there. We say that too. So I think
Cigarettes,
that's
yeah.
another thing that
Dart.
we inherited.
Darts.
Yeah.
Darts.
Smoking a
Like
dart.
for the game?
Nah,
No.
for like a cigarette.
Smoking a dart.
Oh. Never heard that.
Yep.
Well,
Smoking a dart, eh?
been enlightening, eh?
Well,
All right, I want to
Newfoundland's-
wish
Newfoundland's an
everyone
island,
best
too,
of luck.
So it's
on-
actually got a lot in
Oh.
common with Australia. Sorry.
No, I was just doing a little outro, Chris. If you've got something more you want to talk about.
Nothing exciting. Just trying to be funny,
I think Jesse has a hot date. You guys get that vibe
Yeah,
too?
Jesse,
Like,
you got
he's-
somewhere to be, don't you? Have you
Yeah.
got-
Cleaned up.
He
Yeah,
wasn't
I
getting
got,
text from his mom. He was getting text from a hot date. That's what it is.
Oh, did we decide what we were doing for the next meeting though? I feel like we were talking about it. Did we come to
Yeah.
conclusion on how we're doing it?
In my opinion, if people aren't really like, I thought it'd be cool for us to drink a little bit, but no one seems to want to do that next week. So I think we should save that until we're ready to do that, maybe. And maybe we just do like a post-mortem after the election.
It wouldn't be very dignified. It's true. We're still chief delegates, so we really shouldn't be
Yeah.
getting shit-faced on, as part of our term.
That's my unique distinction, I'm afraid. Yeah, it'd be nice to do a post-mortem after the term is over. Plus, yeah, next week we might want to have a bunch of legit announcements because it's going to be right before the election. So
Yeah, and I'll be Chuck sent me like five different images for what I showed you last time. I'll be swarming those out shortly, and we'll get a few hundred likes on some post about the next election.
What
Are we
about
still
the
with that?
multi-sig thing, the rename of this account that you guys have all signed? Have we verified that?
Yeah,
that-
that's Sebastian. He's a B. I verified that account. It's the same account that he uses for EOSBs, and he's also at EOS support.
So you guys know him and know that this is a legit request.
Yes.
All right.
I wouldn't have signed it had I not seen a big check mark thumbs up from Jesse in the Eden members chat, and then the fact that Chris had already signed, and I think Randall.
I was just following Jesse's lead.
You lead us all over the edge.
No,
of doom,
no
Jesse. No.
leading. We should all have independent conclusions on this kind of stuff.
I
It's
reached
true.
my own independent conclusion
Since
based
you
on
said so,
input
I'll have
from
one.
the trust of my fellow Eden
No,
members.
well, Sebastian requested it. He was in the Eden members chat. That seemed pretty good enough
Yeah.
for my books.
Well, yeah, but anyone can turn into a bad actor as well.
Yeah, how do we know that's his account? Like, what if he's trying to take somebody else's account?
And
Right.
I don't even.
It's
Oh,
true,
wait, no.
but
Yeah.
luckily he's a B and he's a support agent, and so we can verify that is his account.
Have we
So
also
is this-
verified that he's backed it up and that he's not going to do the same thing tomorrow? Like, has he got his keys and everything backed up? He's not going to make the same mistake twice.
Oh God, we have to
I
verify. that for
don't know,
everybody?
John.
Well, we should, because we shouldn't just do this. Like, we should do this as least as possible, kind of thing.
Well, we haven't really done it that much. It's only our second one.
And you've only
Yeah,
got a week
but-
left.
Going forward, this is something that we should push out, because again, we can't do this when it comes to, or we can't do this as easy when it comes to bigger stuff. Like, what if he were to become a board major member, and he was like, oh, sorry guys, I wasn't taking my account security properly, I lost my key, so I can't do the multi-sig, and then someone else is on holiday or something, again, suddenly we can't sign messages. So like, there should be a warning, like, hey, if you fuck this up, like, we'll get you out of this hole. Don't ever do it again. There's no excuse for it, really. Back up your keys, put it in a safe place. Like, it's key negligence. Like, it shouldn't be so easy. Oh, it's no worries. We'll just do this multi-sig for you. No big deal. It's like, nah, don't do that.
So we
again.
should have like a swear jar where people have to put in some EOS, because whenever they force people to do this,
There should be a
yeah,
process, though.
a process is
A
needed.
process both for verifying independently whoever's signing it, and processes to make sure people are setting up their accounts right.
Yeah, potentially even upload a video like we do with the thing. You do your script as well. Put out the RPFS hash and do it from there.
All
It is
future
a serious-
ideas.
It is a serious offense.
Well, I don't know if it's an offense, but
I think it's an offense. It's negligence. Back up your keys. Like, we've seen this happen again. Everyone's got a story of someone losing a bunch of crypto you know, $30 million in Bitcoin. My mate lost 60 million Australian dollars in Bitcoin. Like this just can't keep going on. And
But
it's
isn't
crucial
that
to crucial
that
to our
puni-
independence as well.
Was
isn't
it a
that
boating
punishment
accident?
enough? Yeah.
So
I said, was it a boating accident? I hear that's also too common with lost keys these days.
And there's a lot of boating in Australia. So
Sorry, it's a Reddit
What are you
meme.
referring to, Aaron? I don't know.
There's a Reddit meme about people losing keys for like losing their money to
lost-
hide it. It's a
yeah,
boating
I lost my
accident.
money in a boating. I lost my keys in a boating accident. I don't know. So
It's trying to make a joke about that.
it may have existed, but I don't. It's gone now.
Yep.
All right.
Yeah, I just
Well,
want to
on that
wish
note-
everyone best of luck on Pomelo. And
Likewise.
yeah. Have a great week, guys.
Live long and prosper.
cheers.